Hello, everyone. This is Dan Hermrich, and I'm here with my colleague, John Raphael.
Hey, everybody.
And this is part of our ongoing series of Lunch and Learn webinars focusing on the various competencies for direct support professionals. And this month, we're discussing community living skills and supports. There's me, there's John. If you've been listening to these webinars as we've been going through them, you've certainly familiar with us at this point. I'm the Director of Certification and Accreditation for NADSP, and John.
I'm the Director of Educational Services, and that's us. So
That's us.
we just love doing these, and we want these to be kind of informal, but also kind of informative for you guys. So let's do it.
And you've probably also, if you've been following along each month, are familiar with NADSP and our mission and vision. You know, we're all about promoting direct support professionals, improving their practice standards, and the way we do that is through knowledge, skills, and values. And there is the Venn diagram. You know, we believe that you've got to have all three of those things. You've got to have knowledge, skills, and values if you're going to provide quality support. And we believe that that quality should be measured at the point of interaction, should be defined at the point of interaction between the staff member and that person that they're supporting. And that philosophy comes from our founder, John F. Kennedy Jr., who wrote that in a report to President Clinton back in 1996. All right, so these are our NADSP competency areas. These represent that skills circle in the Venn diagram we showed you just a few seconds ago. And one of the competency areas, in this case, it is area 6, is community living skills and supports.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm looking. Sometimes when we're looking at these or when we're teaching about these, people get confused about community and service networking, and then they see community living skills and supports, and they're very different. And we're going to get into why they're different, I think, and maybe to get rid of some of that confusion for people.
Yeah, you're right, and I hope that that's one of the things we accomplished today.
Yep.
CMS also has their own competency set. And they have community living skills and supports in their set as well. For them, it's area 9. They're very similar to the NADSP competencies. They're organized a little differently. They have 12 areas instead of 15. The other major difference is that these are designed to be cross-sector competencies, meaning they're written in a way that they should apply equally well to any type of human services, whether you're supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, whether you're supporting people with brain injuries, whether you're supporting people who are aging. These competency sets should be written in a way that it will apply to any of those types of human services.
Yeah. It's interesting, Dan. I was with a group yesterday teaching and training, and it was a cross section of disciplines. So there were people that supported children, people that were working in the mental health arena, in inpatient actually services, people working with folks with developmental disabilities, people working with addiction and alcoholism services, and they were talking about these specific competencies, and that it's universal. These 12 areas are universal and are used by pretty much anybody that's doing direct support and direct support work. So they're powerful. They're really powerful, and it's really good that we're honing in on the ones that are dealing with community. So let's get after it.
All right. So this is what we call the overall competency language from NADSP for community living skills and supports. The direct support professional has the ability to match specific supports and interventions to the unique needs of individual participants and recognizes the importance of friends, family, and community relationships. So there's a couple of things going on there, I think. Certainly the idea that each person we support is an individual. The way that we support them is going to be unique to them.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of things that go into living in the community. Part of it is just about, the upkeep of your own living space, and to take care of yourself as well. And part of it's really being a part of the community and developing those connections and those relationships. So this competency really kind of touches on two major, slightly different aspects of living in the community.
Right. And I think there's this notion, Dan, that we need to be independent. All of us need to be independent one day, and I just don't think that's a fair perspective on what it's like to live on your own, because nobody lives completely independently. We're interdependent, and to be interdependent means you got to have relationships and friendships and family. And I think we might take that for granted as people that as as a person without an intellectual disability necessarily. I recall, and I bet you can recall those moments when you were kind of starting to live on your own.
Right.
I mean, it was scary. I didn't know how to do certain things, and when I look at this particular statement, it really pushes the fact that we do need to rely on others. We can't be completely an island, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. And in some cases, we would reach out to, professional services to do some things that maybe we don't know how to do. And in a lot of cases, we rely on, what gets called natural supports.
Yeah.
We all have those natural supports that we that are our go-to
Yep.
when we need some help.
Absolutely.
And of course, that's the overall competency language. But as always, we have what are called the skill statements. These are those sort of individual measurable statements about what's expected of a direct support professional, the skills that they need to do this work well. So competent DSP assists the participant to meet their physical and personal management needs, and it gives examples of what both of those might be. But we do that by teaching skills, providing supports, and building on people's individual strengths and capabilities. So there's, I think, a real tendency, a real pressure almost for DSPs who might not have a whole lot of time available,
Mm.
who might not have a whole lot of coworker support available.
Yeah.
It's really easy to take on these tasks for people. And
Yeah.
often you can complete the task yourself in much less time than it takes to really teach someone and involve someone. And we've got to kind of fight that. We've got to find those moments where we can help people develop those skills, not just to work towards being more independent, but because we're in somebody else's home, and we don't want to come into someone else's home and take over everything.
Yeah. I, yeah, amen to that. And I think what happens also, Dan, is I think a lot of direct support professionals that are maybe younger, that are maybe out and kind of on their own themselves fairly recently, they're learning stuff. That can be things like how to use a laundry machine. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I'm not saying that, that people that are direct support professionals never did their laundry. But some of these fancy laundry machines are kind of complicated. You got to use special soap, and if you use the wrong kind of laundry detergent, you'll kind of make more suds, and you'll blow up the machine. And I remember a situation where direct support professionals were working in a house that had, it was a group home, and it had a dishwasher, and they put actual dish detergent that you would use in a sink um,
Yeah.
and they put that in the dishwasher, and they didn't know it was a mistake. It was no bad, no foul, but it was a mistake that you know 10 minutes later there's suds pouring out of the
Yeah.
dishwasher, and
I was
pretty funny, but ultimately those are the things, right,
right.
that we need to learn, and I think we are going to learn a lot of those things by messing up and making
Right.
mistakes.
And I'm sure those DSPs never made that particular mistake again. And
I
you know,
don't think so.
that's how we all learn. We
Yeah.
learn through the mistakes that we make.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have to, when we're supporting direct support professionals to be doing this competency, I think we've got to be lenient. We've got to be forgiving. Um, cooking that doesn't come to everybody easily or naturally. And that's part of what we're talking about here. Um, and you might burn the toast a couple times before you figure out the toaster. You might, burn the cookies or whatever it is that you're making. And and I think when we are looking at helping direct support professionals become more competent and intentional, um, we also have to have some humor and
Yeah.
have to be forgiving.
And of course, the same is true as DSPs are teaching these skills to the people that they're supporting.
Yes,
It may not go well the first time, and there may be a temptation to kind of pull back and to do more of the household tasks yourself the first time it doesn't go well. But
yes,
again, that's how we learn. We learn by making mistakes. We learn through trial and error. And that same patience that direct support professionals deserve in these tasks certainly also carries over to the people that we're supporting.
yes, absolutely.
Oh,
There we go.
let's try this again. We missed one.
Oh,
There we go.
there you go. Yeah. Uh,
So these skill statements talk about identifying, securing, and using needed equipment, such as adaptive equipment and therapies. And this is something that we also do when we're supporting health and wellness, which is a whole nother competency. But a lot of these resources are available within the community. There's all sorts of assistive technology out there that is just becoming, commonplace everyday stuff. I know I couldn't get by very well without my smartphone. I've got one of these speakers that I can talk to and ask questions of, and it's becoming more and more part of our mainstream society. And so we want to help people with finding um, things that are helpful to them out in the community.
yeah, yeah. And I think, well, I'm looking at adaptive equipment, especially, so if you're supporting people that they use, whatever, wheelchairs or mobility assistance devices, walkers, whatever, those are, you got to know how to navigate, how to get those things repaired, how to maintain uh, batteries in electric wheelchairs, how to make sure how to help people clean their wheelchair. That can be something that, again, doesn't come naturally. There's things when you're helping somebody with their adaptive equipment that you might have to learn, and then that's the responsibility of the direct support professional to figure that out. Dynavox equipment or communication devices, the use of tablets and iPads. All of those kind of things are they are, and I think our strong opinion, right, Dan, these are things that are they're the gateway to community life, and allow people who would otherwise not have that kind of assistant adaptive assistant device stuff, they would otherwise not be in the community, or not have access to the community as readily. So
Yeah, and that kind of goes into that next skill statement, that part of living in the community is making connections, right? It's the development of those friendships and other relationships.
Yeah.
And, John, next month we're going to have a whole competency just about that, building and maintaining relationships.
Right.
But it's also a big part of this competency about not just being physically in the community, whatever that means,
Yeah.
but being a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Darn right. That's that word inclusion. We hear it so much, and what does it mean? Well, it means, I think it means being a regular at your
Yeah,
local Starbucks, or being a regular at the supermarket where people know your name and you go to the same checkout line or what have you. That's what community is about.
yeah, absolutely. And then there's a bullet point there, a skill statement there about assisting the participant to recruit and train service providers as needed. And, depending on where DSPs work and what sort of model of services they work in, that may or may not be something that they're doing. But in certain models of support, it's going to be very, very important.
Without a doubt.
All right, so that was the NADSP competency, and now we're transitioning into the CMS core competency. Again, remember these are the cross-sector versions of the competencies. And I think you'll find it's very similar. In this case, they say DSW instead of DSP, the direct support worker in the CMS language. But we help people to manage their personal, financial, and household tasks. And we help people, we do things that are necessary. Of course, CMS wants us to stick to things that are necessary. But we're trying to help people pursue an independent, community-based lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking at the three, well, personal, financial, and household tasks. I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but those things, they're sometimes they're overwhelming, and that said, I think when direct support professionals um, are helping another person in those areas, I know that direct support professionals struggle with their own issues around the personal, financial, and household tasks, especially direct support professionals. An abundance of them are single moms, in the United States. We know that. And single moms, my goodness gracious, they have, if they have two jobs, which often they do have as direct support professionals, it's this ironic thing that they're helping people with these things that they struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, that's where I think, as people that are supporting and teaching and training and helping direct support professionals become better, we've got to be forgiving. We've got to be developmental and not punitive with direct support professionals as they're learning about how to do these kind of competencies.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And these are CMS's skill statements, those individual measurable objectives, those bullet points. And so again, covering a lot of the same ground, helping people with their personal care, providing training in these areas. Again, it's not just about doing things for people; it's about helping people to develop these skills themselves. And again, same thing with the household tasks. It's about teaching and assisting, and not doing things for people, not taking over in someone else's home. And then the meal planning and shopping. That can be very overwhelming for people who may have lived in an institution,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
may not have had a whole lot of choice
Yeah.
in what meals were available to them.
Yeah. I'm recalling a time, Dan, when there was a man that lived in an institution for probably 30 years or so, a pretty large institution, and he moved into a smaller intermediate care facility where I was affiliated, and he arrived from this institution, and he went into the kitchen, and he didn't really know what the kitchen was. He didn't understand what it was because he never was in a kitchen. He was always served food in a cafeteria, and didn't know what the refrigerator was, and opened the refrigerator, or somebody opened the refrigerator. He saw the food in there, and you could tell he was, oh my goodness, whose food is that? And um, and there it is in a nutshell. Wow, can you imagine what we take for granted? Um, who those of us that haven't lived or were warehoused in an institution, how overwhelming that can be, and where the direct support professional needs to come in and assist people in understanding about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's kind of a frivolous example, but I was in the grocery store the other day and was buying some barbecue sauce, and there's literally 3 dozen varieties of barbecue sauce, on the grocery store shelves, and talk about an opportunity for decision making.
Oh goodness, yeah, yeah,
There's an overwhelming number of choices, and what do you like? Do you want it to be sweet? Do you want it to be spicy? Do you want it to be vinegar based? Do you want it to be mustard based? Um, what are you looking for in a barbecue sauce? And that's something that people, oftentimes may have very strong feelings about.
that's
Um, and it would take a second to just, as a DSP, grab a bottle off the shelf.
right.
But to take some time and then to really, talk through the options with someone
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
is a much more labor intensive process.
it is. And I can just envision it now. Maybe have a taste party. Where you have a bunch of different barbecue sauces. And you go and you work with somebody, maybe have a friend or two over, and you sample the different kinds of barbecue sauce, and or go to like a Costco kind of place if you're near one of those where they're always having these taste
Free
samples where
samples.
you know oh, there's just so much you can do, and I think that's the fun part of being a direct support professional. Not only can you sample some really good barbecue sauce, but you're teaching about um, this is community living skills.
Yeah,
It is down to the barbecue sauce. So
yeah. It's
it's kind of
there
cool.
are these hundreds of decisions that we make every day, and we maybe don't even notice that we're making them, but they're decisions that have an impact on the quality of our lives, and we've got to help people to make those decisions. And you might buy some bad barbecue sauce from time to time, and like anything else, you learn from that mistake.
Right.
All right, and kind of to wrap this up, of course, we have badges in the NADSP eBadge Academy that are related to community living. The first two there, meal prep and household management, have that little house icon, and that is to designate that they are part of the associated with a skill statement from the CMS core competency of community living skills and supports. And again, what we're looking for with those badges is not a DSP doing things for someone. We do get submissions from time to time, like for meal prep, where a DSP will say, oh, I'm the best cook and I, cook all my special dishes for everybody. And I do a really good job with the meal prep. But, that's great, but it's not what we're looking for. We're looking for helping people to develop those skills, helping people to become an active part of those parts of their life, and also with household management. Occasionally, we do get those submissions where a DSP, talks about all the things they do for a person, all the laundry they do and the cleaning they do. But again, as important as that might be, it's really not what we're looking for in those badge submissions. We're looking for how are you helping people to take more control over those parts of their lives? How are you looking to help people to develop those skills and gain just a little bit more independence?
Yeah.
And then those final two badges, they're actually associated with other competencies, but they certainly overlap with this community living skills and supports competency. We've got a personal care badge, and in this case, it's in the supporting health and wellness area, but it overlaps with what we've been talking about today. And community networking, that whole idea of going out into the community and making those connections, and really being a part of your community. Again, that's in another, it's in the community living, it's in the community networking competency, but it also lines up with community living.
Sure does. Yeah, I think people need to claim these badges.
And that's really what we had prepared today, John. Any closing thoughts?
Nope. Other than I think when you think of the notion of living in the community, it's a lot more than just getting your own place and having barbecues. There's so many moving parts to being able to do it successfully and in a way where you can interact and have a network of friends in your community. So that's our lunch and learn today, right, Dan?
Yes, that's our lunch and learn for this month. We'll be back next month to talk about supporting friendships and other relationships.
That's it. Yeah.
And we hope you'll tune in for that as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, John.